Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This week, helping me tackle all the biggest headlines is former Sun's royal editor Charles Wright and former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III, Dickie Arbiter. Dickie, I need you to put your palace pants back on for a lot of these topics because I was so excited that you were going to have some insight into. I mean, does a royal archive really exist for a woman that's no longer a working member of the royal family? But we'll get there. I'll start with you, Charles. How exciting is the fact that we are going to see the Prince and Princess of Wales here in Washington, D.C. for America's 250th birthday? This is a thrill considering the fact that we went to war to get away from your country.
Yes, no, if it comes off. I mean, I haven't actually heard any official announcement from the palace yet. But if actually William and Catherine get to America for that particular celebration, which is a big deal, is obviously it's a big deal in your country, and given that they kicked out George III those many years ago. No, I think it's a great deal, a great coup, for America for them to be there, because that will certainly enhance the celebrations and the joy that you guys will probably have in July.
Dickie, it's all about the special relationship between our two countries. And thankfully, the current president really admires and appreciates the British royal family. Is this a way for him to express that by inviting them to this event?
Oh, most certainly, it's a way of expressing. I mean, you were talking just now about William and Catherine going to the United States for the 250th anniversary, probably sometime in July if it comes up. Got to remember that anything that comes up will happen probably before the end of school term, because they'll want to be at their children's end of term functions, and there are a lot of those. But we've got to remember too that the King and Queen will be going as well.
Hmm.
Hopefully the king will be fit enough to go. He seems fit. He seems raring to go. He's done quite a few state visits abroad. And this certainly, he got on very well with President Trump in September. And there's no reason why this schmoozing shouldn't continue next year. They do get on well. They're two completely different people. And that's probably why they do get on well.
That's interesting that they do get on well because they're so different. Charles, do you see this potentially strengthening our relationship even more? It's my understanding that one of the last times the king saw President Trump, Trump shockingly walked away with more sympathy towards Ukraine. Trump infamously, close to Vladimir Putin, President Putin. And so it's amazing how much influence the king has over our president.
I'm sure. I mean, they get on. So if you get on with someone, you are going to have influence over them. I mean, they're much more prepared to listen to your point of view on matters. I mean, none of us know what goes on behind closed doors. I mean, Dickie might have an idea because he's been around the palace for a while, but none of us really know what goes on behind closed doors, and we don't really know what the king's view, uh, sitting with Trump, and what he may have said to him about Ukraine or whatever. But these visits are designed to strengthen ties between countries anyway, and the fact he is probably going to go to America in April, as long as his treatment allows. He's obviously looking a lot better and everything else, but we have to wait and see. And that will, I mean, I don't know how much more you can strengthen the links between the UK and the US, but it will be welcome by Trump and your country as well. You guys love a royal tour. I mean,
We do.
I've covered these things many times, and you turn up in your thousands on pavements, on walkways, and everything else. It is quite something to see.
What you've got to remember, Kinsey, is that here you've got two heads of state meeting. Charles can't achieve anything because what is achieved is actually on the political front. And it's the relationship between the British government and the American government. Now, there are those who will say here, I'm probably one of them, that we haven't got the best of a British government. They could do better. I'm not sure how President Trump views Keir Starmer. He kind of pushed him to the back row fairly recently, if we remember rightly, and virtually ignored him. So the king can do so much to smooth the path, but at the end of the day, it's all about governments communicating and what governments can achieve. Heads of state to head of state, nothing wrong with that. They get on famously. And if that could be translated into governments doing exactly the same thing, well, we really would have a special relationship.
Dickie, I think we might have had this conversation before, and I'm not being dismissive of the previous president, but it's my understanding that President Biden, because of his family ties, he was polite on the outside, but realistically, he did not have the same admiration for the royal family that Donald Trump has. And, he was very supportive of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle throughout some of the most chaotic moments. I mean, I think he spoke out in favor of them right after the Oprah Winfrey interview. So it does seem like our bond is a little tighter today than it was a few years ago. Or am I misunderstanding?
No, you're not misunderstanding, and the bond is very much tighter. You've got to remember, Biden had links to Ireland. The family has Irish heritage. Trump has got Scottish heritage. For Scotland, read British Isles. So therefore, Charles is King of Scotland as well as King of England and Wales and Northern Ireland. And that is where the relationship fits. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Take away the piece and the whole thing collapses. But Trump is Scottish heritage. And because he's Scottish heritage, he feels a bit like a Brit. And feeling a bit like a Brit, he rather likes the idea of the royal family.
I love that. I did read that Trump's mother had a scrapbook full of pictures of Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret growing up.
And that would have and Trump would have seen that. He would have known about that. And he had an early start. He was brought up on monarchy. Biden wasn't.
So yeah, that
Biden was brought up on, actually, but that's a story for another day.
It is. That is so fun to think about, though, that Trump's mother would, I think he said in an interview once that she would stop whatever she was doing to watch the royal family on TV, whether it was a wedding or an interview. It was must-see TV for her. All right, so I'm sure the audience knows I'm very excited for that visit, but we will move on to something you both experienced in real time. The Diana Panorama interview. There's a new book out called Dianorama, which or Diana, yeah, I think I pronounced it correctly. Andy Webb talks at great length about the cover-up that went into this BBC interview, and People magazine talked to a friend of Princess Diana, Rosa Monckton, who says that Diana told her about a month before she passed away that she had regrets about that Panorama interview. And Diana has no idea at the time that she's having this conversation. We know so much more today about the deceit that went into securing that interview. And Diana was clueless as to how much scheming, lying, and Photoshop went into really the reporter making Diana feel like it was them against the world. Dickie, talk to me about covering that inside the palace. And before Diana passed away, did you get the sense that she regretted that sit down? How destructive was it inside the palace? And then I'll ask Charles the same thing on the media side.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because Andy Webb's book Dianorama is a play on words. Rama being panorama and Diana panorama. If we rewind slightly and we go back to when she cooperated with Andrew Morton, although she denied it at the time in 1992 on Diana, Her True Story, I spoke to her because after the serialization, she panicked, and I said, "Well, why the hell did you do it?" She said, "Well, I'm sorry I did it." I said, "Well, it's no good being sorry because it's done and it's out there in the marketplace." I did the same thing after she did Panorama. I lived on the Kensington Palace estate, and I called her after the showing of it. She didn't take my call immediately, but I persisted. And I said, "Why did you do it?" She said, "Well, I'm sorry I did do it. I said, well, you've done it. And the repercussions will be horrendous because who knows what's going to come from it. As we know what came from it, the Queen ordered them to go see lawyers and get a divorce. It was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but you see, we know now. And firstly, why did Bashir get it? Because Bashir was a nobody reporter, and yet he inveigled his way.
He was a
into
religious reporter, Dickie.
He was a religious reporter afterwards.
Oh, really?
He was a reporter for Panorama, but he was, really right down at the bottom of the pile. But he managed to inveigle his way into Diana. He managed to bluff her with all sorts of information that her staff were being paid off. Their bank accounts were swelling because they were spying on her. He produced false bank statements. It's unbelievable what he produced. And the BBC actually covered this whole thing up. Now, they must have realized at the time when Bashir got this interview that, hey, hang on a minute, how come this guy's got the interview and not one of our senior named people gets the interview? So there was a bit of suspicion there right from the word go, but they covered it up. The executive producer of Panorama at the time, a chap called Steve Howlett, he's no longer with us. He sadly passed away, I think about 2017, but he was adamant that the palace knew days beforehand. Well, we didn't know. We only knew about 5 hours beforehand. And he was very bullish. He was a bit of a bully, and everybody cowered before him. So it's the fact that Rosa Monckton has come out and said that 25 years, well, more than 25 years after the event, is probably fortuitous, given that Andy Webb has written a very good book. But we really do need to get to the bottom of the BBC. There were executives. It was head of news. Tony Hall later became Director General. It was John Burt, who was Director General at the time. They all knew what was going on, and they all covered it up. And it was covered up for 25 years until Earl Spencer came out with various documents that he had and made it public. It's very unfortunate, and unfortunately, William's got to go through this all over again. I'm not terribly concerned about Harry because Harry is his own worst enemy,
right?
And yes, he's got to go through with it, but it's just unfortunate that it wasn't nipped in the bud at the very beginning and possibly stopped. I mean, just one more thing, because I know Charlie's got a lot to say on this from his side. The chairman of the BBC was a chap called Marmaduke Hussey, Dukey Hussey. The Director General kept it from him that Diana had done this interview purely on the grounds that his wife was a lady in waiting to the late Queen.
Oh, Lady Susan.
That's how duplicitous the whole scenario was.
Wow. Okay, so Charles, talk to me about how earth-shattering this was in the newsroom. I mean, she gave you so much content out of that one sit down. There are 3 of us in the marriage. And did you have any question about how Martin Bashir secured this? You've talked to me about how, like, who was it that would prank call Richard Kay and Diana would prank call you from places?
Well, they did one time, yeah.
So you knew that Diana had unique relationships with media. Sure. So did you question Martin Bashir's access at all?
Well, no, because on that night, remember, Dickie's right, he had 5 hours, advance notice of this coming out. We probably had about the same. And it was when you've got in a newsroom, a huge story, you're not questioning, how someone got it. That's for after. What you're looking at on that night is what is being said. And what was being said was absolutely devastating. I mean, there were so many lines coming out of that Panorama interview that you could have had, I think, probably a splash a day for a month. A splash is the main story on the front page. So it was fascinating stuff. The question of whether Martin Bashir, about how Martin Bashir got it, didn't crop up in that time because you were so concentrated on what Diana was saying. And it's interesting to hear. It is the first time I've heard Dickie say the conversation he had with the Princess of Wales. And you've got to remember that at that time, she had dispensed with, in effect, all her close aides, dumped some of her friends as well, that if she'd spoken to, they would have said, is this the right thing to do? Now, if a newspaper had done and got that interview using the same tactics as Martin Bashir, that newspaper would have been closed down. There's
Yeah.
no question about that. Now, we've got in Britain at the moment that the BBC is yet again under fire for a variety of controversies with the resignation of the head of the BBC and the head of news. There's all sorts of things going on in the background. But this is not the first time that the BBC have been caught out in doing things the wrong way. And it's about time that there was some sort of proper investigation into its staff. And Dickie is absolutely right when he says Martin Bashir, Martin who
Yeah,
was doing.
Martin who?
It surprises me that the bosses, Bashir was the one who clearly brought this in. And he brought it in the way he was bringing it in through conning her and everything else. And one of the documents he forged was a document allegedly showing that the Sun was paying one of her staff or one of her close aides, for this complete fictitious. And what surprised me was that the BBC allowed Bashir to run with this, and maybe they didn't know what was going on, but and not saying, "Well, hang on, Martin, you're not good enough to do this. Let's get one of the big guns in to do this interview." And on the other side, the fact that Diana was regretting the Panorama interview, and as Dickie says, and he's right, she tended to regret what she did with Martin, Andrew Morton. But the problem with her was that she shot from the lip quite a few times without sitting down and
This is
just
Harry and
thinking about
Meghan.
what she.
This is
Sorry?
Harry and Meghan.
Yeah, but this. I mean, with Diana, it was a situation where if she had just sat down and thought what was going to happen, never mind all the. Okay, I understand she was getting her own back on Charles and Camilla and everything else.
But
But
but according to this book, that Martin Bashir was telling her that King Charles, Prince Charles at the time, wanted to murder her and Queen
yeah,
Camilla
yeah,
to
yeah.
marry Tiggy Leg Burke. I mean, maybe she's acting out of fear and paranoia.
Well, I think
I
that
think
helped. That helped fuel her paranoia. But she was a very vulnerable lady at that time. And let's not. Lots of people sort of say, "Well, it's rotten that the Queen took away her police bodyguards." No, she did not. Diana was the one who went to the Queen and said, "I don't want these bodyguards." And the reason she didn't want the bodyguards is because she believed that they were spying on her for Charles.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing that comes out, and I brought this up within 5 minutes of watching the interview, how well rehearsed it was. Every line was rehearsed. There was nothing spontaneous there. There were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. It just, came out. Dinah was quite quick on certain things, but this was so well rehearsed. And Charlie's absolutely right. It wasn't the Queen that took away her personal protection officer. She got rid of them because she felt they were too intrusive. They were spying on her. A lot of it was of her own making because she tended to embrace people who worked for her and get too close to people. And then if something went wrong, she would go against them. Close protection officer, they are there 24/7. Wherever she went, they were there. And she felt intrusive. And that's why she got rid of them. And had she not got rid of them, we wouldn't be talking about this today because she'd be very much alive.
I agree with you, and that's really what the book says too. That the paranoia that this interview or that the interviewer caused is why she fires her royal protection team, and she gets in the car with somebody that their blood alcohol level was questionable and didn't put her seatbelt on, and yeah, we know the drill.
But you've got to ask too, was there a seatbelt in the car? Because it wasn't a hotel car, it was a hire car.
Wow.
Because she was meticulous. I remember going out on engagements with her, and every time we left, I would get into the backup car, and first thing she'd say, belt up.
That's
first thing she did when she got in the car was belt up. And yet here she got into this Mercedes. She didn't belt up.
Driving at a high speed.
Was there a belt in the car?
Very, very interesting. I
You've
want to
got to,
ask you, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, you've also got to remember that uh, if she had still got police protection on that dreadful night, that officer would never have allowed her to get in that car with a drunk. Never.
No, no.
I doubt whether that officer would have allowed them to go to Paris, because I spoke to her the day before she left for the south of France. And her game plan was to go to the south of France, have a bit of a break, straight back to London, get the boys, get them ready for school. And instead they drop into Paris, which was a decision by Dodi, who obviously called his father because they did nothing without father's permission. And father said, yes, of course you can go to Paris. Arrive at the hotel. There's no security. There's no room ready. There's nothing ready. There are no cars. That speaks
Ridiculous.
volumes, doesn't it?
Totally irresponsible. I want to ask you, you both have talked about people working for Diane and how close she got to them to the point of it jeopardizing their relationship towards the end. I know she met with multiple astrologers before she wrote or before she participated in Andrew Morton's book. I imagine she did something similar before talking to Bashir. And there is an astrologer, a celebrity astrologer in Australia that recently met with Harry and Meghan. And I've said for a while that because I know that Meghan has seen astrologers, multiple astrologers. And I've said for a while that I felt like Harry and Meghan might seek guidance from those people more than they listen to the guidance from their team, their well-equipped team. Do you have an opinion on that? I know it's not wasn't on the rundown, but it's just something I was thinking about based on what we've been talking about.
I
Well,
make no apologies for
sorry, go
being.
on.
I make no apologies. Sorry, Charlie. I make no apologies for being a cynic. An astrologer will tell you what you want to hear.
Hmm. Right. Well, she kept going to one until she found one that said Andrew Morton was a good idea. Some of them said it wasn't, and so she continued to see them until she found
Any
one that said it was.
Anybody who disagrees with her. I think I mentioned this on your show before, but I'm going to repeat it again. Once she got separated, she still had meetings. She had a meeting with a private secretary, with me, with the press secretary. And at the end of this meeting, she said, I'd like to have a reception for the England football team.
Yeah.
And I said to her, ma'am, why? They lost. Do you realize that if you give an England football team a reception because they lost, you're going to have to entertain every team that loses? Do you want to be seen as a loser? And she stopped and she thought, said, yeah, I think you're right. But she wouldn't talk to me after that for 2 weeks.
Wow. That's
So I
insane.
shot down an idea of hers, but it was right that she did not entertain them. If they'd won, yeah, fine. But losing, no, you don't entertain people when they lose. You tell them what naughty boys they've been.
we uh, we found out that Diana, and Dickie's right about, she was quite happy with listening to people and as long as she was hearing the right things. But if she fell out with, some members of staff or whatever, they got booted out. And we described her in one story that we wrote about her as Princess P45. Now, P45 for you Americans is the document you get when you get sacked. And she had sacked around over a reasonably lengthy period, about 20 odd of the staff. She chop and changed them. So there was only really, at the end of the day, 2 or 3 people that were actually kept on. They were replaced, but they eventually went as well. So I can imagine, and Dickie will probably know this better than I, that she could be a very difficult boss, a very difficult woman to deal with. I'm saying that, and I honestly, using the word correctly, I loved her dearly. I mean, she was very good to me. I've got no complaints, but I did fall foul of her once. And when you get a telling off from her, it sticks. This was in Italy at Modena when she was doing War Child with Luciano Pavarotti. And I think I may have told you this before, but we were in a hotel room and a hotel foyer area, and I was looking at her, and she was standing at the counter with Bono of U2. and your animated talk and everything else getting on very, very well. She caught a glimpse of me out of a corner of her eye and marched straight over, arms going like this. She was not a happy woman because we'd written the day before that her friends were concerned about her mental state because of the people she was associating with, i.e., Fayed and so forth.
Mm.
And she came over and she said, I just want to tell you, and you can tell everyone else, I am not crazy. And I said, I never said you were. I mean, they just said friends are just upset, and they care for you. I can take care of myself. And spun around and walked off and back to Bono again. But
Yeah. Well, Dickie, obviously she couldn't take care of herself.
She couldn't. No, I mean, Charlie saying he loved her dearly. We all loved her.
Yeah.
But she was mixed up. She was very mixed up. And as I said, and Charlie endorsed that she'd listened to the last person who spoke to her, who said what she wanted to hear. And she could be difficult. She was good at her job. She was good with people. But you have to ask yourself, well, was some of it a bit of a show?
Mm.
Because at the end of it, she worked herself so hard that she would get in the car at the end of an engagement and virtually collapse through exhaustion. She was quite hyper when she went into these engagements, and it couldn't have been easy because you've got a whole bunch of reporters in there, you've got photographers in there clicking away. Well, they're not clicking away; they're just putting their finger on the button, and the motor is going whirring around overtime, taking so many pics, and nobody can actually work like that. And even when she was going to the gym or going through the concourse at an airport, she would be pursued by photographers, and something's got to crack, and she cracked.
This holiday, while others are chasing the rush, find your sense of calm with Peak. Peak has been so good to us, guys, so I hope you will show them some love. They are a luxury wellness brand powered by rare plants and cutting edge ingredients, offering the perfect remedy for the season's hustle and bustle. Their science backed botanicals, minerals, and vitamins support metabolic function, immune health, sustained energy, and radiant skin. In this festive season, choose serenity as the ultimate luxury with Peak. One of their newest essentials, the Deep Hydration Protocol, is a day to night electrolyte system that keeps your body and skin hydrated while promoting better sleep. Made without sugar, fillers, or artificial flavors, and crafted with natural ingredients for a clean, spa like taste you can feel good about. Daily use supports hydration, glowing skin, improved sleep, and sustained energy. I personally love to start my day with BT Fountain, their beauty electrolyte, the multitasker your beauty routine has been missing. It floods your system with hydration, leaving your skin as bright as your Christmas tree. Feel the holiday magic and unlock your healthiest glow with the most exciting offer of the season, 20% off site wide for life, plus a complimentary exclusive holiday bundle. Go to peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. This is hydration redefined. Try it and glow from the inside out. Charles, the BBC did do some good work this year, right? When they revealed, I believe it was this year, the scandal behind Mohammed Al Fayed. I mean, Diana's friends had some real valuable advice for her, some real legitimate concerns. The BBC revealing that Mohammed was a predator behind the scenes at Harrods, allegedly. And, Dodi, not to speak ill of the dead, was allegedly abusing drugs, was engaged to an American actress at the time that he started seeing Diana. This wasn't the best group for Diana to be mixing with.
No, it wasn't. And I mean, I do know, having spoken to a couple of her friends, around about that time and everything else, they were definitely saying things like, she shouldn't be, associating with these people because it was going to end in tears. No one could have forecast, what eventually would have happened. I'm not suggesting that I could have done that, but Muhammad Al Fayed was always someone who we in the papers always thought was just a bit dodgy. There was always something there. I didn't know about the predatory actions or anything like that, but I knew he was a boss. I knew he was a bully at work and everything else because we'd had people who'd ring us up and say, "Oh, I've had a clash with it's trying to prove it is the problem if they don't go on the record. So yeah, no, I think it was one of Diana's mistakes to get tangled up with them. But that just goes to show, she was running out of real close friends, and she turned to people like, Muhammad Al Fayed. He owned Harrods. He owned
He owned a
Fulham
boat
Football
that
Club.
she could
Yeah.
take the kids on for a holiday.
Oh, that
Uh,
was a great job. That
And
was.
yeah. It,
and Charlie has actually put a finger on it, that she ran out of friends. Diana was basically very lonely. She was stuck in that Kensington Palace estate, that anybody who came to see her, they had to be invited by her. She had to give their name to the police control box to let them in, because it was a secure zone. So she was lonely. She went on holiday to the south of France, took the boys with them to El Fayed's yacht. She brought them back. They went to Balmoral. She had nowhere to go. Her friends were away on holiday. She was lonely. And this invitation came up, and she thought, why not?
but
But
Dickie, go
having
ahead.
said that, why not? She also alerted the paparazzi where she was
Mm,
going. All
mm,
those shots are sitting on the diving board. It just doesn't just happen like that. She
yeah.
contacted the paparazzi, and they made a fortune on some of those pictures. She
Yeah,
was her own worst enemy.
she
And it
was.
wasn't
Dick,
just it wasn't just the paparazzi. I mean, I went down there, with other guys from the royal group and everything else, and we hired our own boat and just sat offshore. And we got some great pictures and great stories about her coming out on a jet ski with the boys on the back and everything else, and the Al Fayed children playing as well.
yeah,
Um,
Dickie, are we sure, or Charles, this might be a better question for you. Are we sure that Diana was calling the paparazzi, or was it Mohammed Al Fayed who was so fiercely determined to be accepted socially in London, in the UK, that he might have been the one to call the paparazzi?
no,
When she
yeah,
went the second time,
yeah.
she called the paps.
Ah, ah. Well,
We got to find out because she had been seen in Saint-Tropez, going to a restaurant, and that's how we knew she was there. I remember I was playing golf for one day, and I got a phone call saying Diana's in Saint-Tropez, get down there. And it wasn't too difficult to find out that she was staying with Mohammed Al Fayed. It wasn't difficult at all.
Dickie, we've talked a little bit about how friends said you need to stay away from these men. Maybe it was about moral issues, maybe it wasn't. But today, Prince Harry still pushes the narrative that it was race related. Do you have any opinion about that?
No,
He
there
told
was
Oprah
nothing.
Winfrey that he's experiencing similar things to his mother because of them dating, a different race.
No, it wasn't race related at all. Let's go wind back on the history of Muhammad Al Fayed. He was desperate to become British. He was refused time and time again a British passport, which is what he wanted, because he wanted to become a British citizen. He then took the bull by the horns and put up big money for the Royal Windsor Horse Show, and he sponsored it for a few years, which then put him in with the royal family in the royal box as the major sponsor. And eventually the Royal Windsor Horse Show ditched him, and he threw his toys out of his pram, so much so that he thought the royal family were against him, the British government were against him. He ripped down the royal warrant signs outside Harrods, and he really went to war with the royals, and anything he could do to damage the royal family. Here we have Diana. Let's invite Diana, because she is a major member of the royal family, albeit now on the outside, but she's still the mother of the future king. And let's take it from there. So invited by Mohammed Al Fayed to take the boys down there. And then a few weeks later, she joins Dodi on the yacht. And it's something that should never have happened, all orchestrated by Al Fayed. And people will say, well, of course it wasn't, but it was orchestrated. He called the shots when it came to his children. He said what they could do. He said what they could say. He said where they could go.
Wow. Do we all agree that Diana likely did regret the Panorama interview after some thought, after processing it,
Well,
Charles?
I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did regret it, if not for anything that she may have said about Charles and Camilla. But I think she would have regretted it because of her boys, because the fallout, the eventual fallout, has hurt them more than I suspect than it would have done Charles and Camilla.
Dickie?
Well, she did regret it, but it's no good regret it after. It's a bit like shutting the stable door when the horse has bolted.
Well,
She regretted having done Andrew Morton, and she went from the frying pan back into the fire again, and was hoodwinked by Bashir. She was angry with Charles the year before, having admitted having committed adultery while still married to her. He made clear when the marriage was irretrievably broken down. Diana was no angel. She was playing around as well.
I know.
So
The bodyguard that died in the
well,
motorcycle
yeah,
accident.
there's been a lot of speculation and rumor about Barry Manicky, but it's after when the marriage did go pear shaped, when it wasn't working and they were leading separate lives. He living at Highgrove, she living at Kensington Palace, coming together for engagements and then going their separate ways. But she was no angel. So let's not put all the blame on Charles. To make a marriage work, two people have got to make it work. Two people didn't make it work. But it happens in life. Marriages are not made in heaven. They are made by two people. They either succeed or they don't succeed. But let's not castigate both of them because it failed. But we are doing it, or a lot of people doing it, because they're members of the royal family and they believe that members of the royal family shouldn't get divorced. Why not? They're human beings.
Yeah. Although I think you're in a documentary that I'm in about the president's relationship with the royal family. Maybe, I don't know. But one of the things I discussed is how the Queen wouldn't allow Jackie Kennedy's sister and brother-in-law initially at their big event because they were divorced. And it's like the irony that those used to be the rules and the regulations and the standards. And then like a lot of Queen Elizabeth's children get divorced. It was
Yeah, well, there was a point where you couldn't actually work at Buckingham Palace if you were divorced, and if you were single and you were having a relationship with somebody, one of you had to leave.
Oh wow. I mean, good Lord, times
Yeah,
have changed.
there were some very old-fashioned rules. There was a time when divorced people were not invited to garden parties.
Oh,
But when most of the population is divorced anyway, you're going to run out of people to invite.
that is wild. You know the saying, you can't make everyone happy. You're not chips and guac. Well, it was very likely written about today's sponsor, Masa Chips. Do you ever read the label on a typical bag of chips? It's often like a science experiment of seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, and mystery ingredients. Masa is part of a growing movement to bring back real food. Masa's chips contain just three ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass fed beef tallow. Not only do these chips avoid the bad stuff, they are crunchy and taste incredible too. Snacking on masa chips is not like eating regular chips. With masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic with no crash, bloat, or gross, sluggish feeling afterwards. You won't find yourself binging or feeling hungry. Personally, my favorite flavor of masa is the original. It's a clean and crisp taste. If you love masa, then you'll love Vandy Crisps. Vandy, Masa's sister company, makes the most delicious three-ingredient potato chips I've ever had. My favorite flavor is smokehouse barbecue because I am a Texan, okay? Ready to give Masa or Vandy a try? Use code Kinsey for 25% off your first order at masachips.com or vandycrisps.com, or simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code to claim this offer. Don't feel like ordering online? Masa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone. You will not regret it. All right, well, let's transition to another famous divorced woman, Meghan Markle.
Oh dear God.
I'm so sorry. Dickie, let me stick with you for a second because I thought of you when I read this article. So Meghan is accused of, and I think her team, through their through some loose language. I think her team confirms that she took home this dress. But there was a $1,700 designer one shoulder gown that Meghan wore in during her Variety cover shoot. She's wearing
Was
the
that the
same.
black one?
No, it's a green one. And it's
Oh,
the
right.
same dress that
Oh, yes.
Meghan's wearing in her new promo for her upcoming Netflix holiday special. And there were reports, this initially was reported on Andrew Gold's Heretics podcast in 2024 from a Vanity Fair journalist, that Meghan Markle kept a lot of stuff after the shoot. And so when people recognized the dress, they said, she kept that without permission. I mean, there are multiple sources that tell Page Six here in the United States that she took it without asking. Meghan's team says that's not true. They say that the insinuation that any items were taken without the full knowledge or agreement of the on-set stylist or their respective teams is not only categorically false, but also highly defamatory. Any items kept were done so in total transparency and in accordance with contractual arrangements. Now, this is where I need your wisdom, Dickie. According to People, it's standard for talent to retain select items from photo shoots, sometimes for security reasons, including to prevent potential resale or unauthorized auction. Clothing worn by members of the royal family and other public figures has been targeted for resale in the past, making the practice both common and precautionary. But this conflicts with one source close to Meghan telling Page Six that Meghan had to take the green gown because it was part of archiving her clothes as a royal. They said Meghan must take clothes as a royal. It's required to archive. Oh wait, she's required to archive all of her looks. It was known that when things were pulled, they may not be returned. So do we get to look forward to the Museum of Meghan Markle? I mean, what is this archived clothing situation that they're trying to play on us?
Firstly, let's take Diana, for example, because she was always in something that appeared to be new. And when she was on tour, she was in a new wardrobe. That particular wardrobe would have been paid for by the Foreign Office because they were going abroad on tour on behalf of the government, i.e. the Foreign Office. Any clothes that were worn would be paid for if the Foreign Office initially paid for them. But if Diana wanted to keep them, then she would pay for them. There's a very hard and fast rule within royal circles. They don't accept gifts. Any gift is returned unopened, or if it's opened, it'll be packed up and returned again. Everything that Diana wore, she bought, or was bought for her for royal tours. This whole business of archiving clothes, my goodness, the woman has only been sort of royal for about 6 or 7 years, and here she is sort of playing the diva. Yeah. Diana's dresses, all those that were sold, which made a lot of money for charity, were bought by her or by Charles through their earnings, through the Duchy of Cornwall earnings. So archiving, I mean, for example, all late Queen's clothes have been archived. They've been stored. Some of them are going on exhibition for the summer opening, and that's a good way of doing it. But this whole Meghan's making it up as she goes along. She hasn't got a clue.
She was a royal for less than 2 years. She's been not a working royal for longer than she was a royal. The fact that she thinks that she's important enough to have a royal archive is personally offensive to me.
Well, it is offensive. It's offensive to any thinking person. Charlie, as a reporter, as a journalist, would you be cynical about this? You think it's offensive?
I think she's using that excuse, and which she didn't need to have to use that excuse to archive her clothes. I mean, I'm going to shock you now. I'm going to sort of put up a defense of Meghan on this one, because we all know that celebrities, when they do shows and when they do sit-down interviews, they produce a list of demands, whether it be clothes, whether it be a special type of water, a special type of whatever. And I don't think that this is any different. I believe the fact that when Meghan agreed to do this Vanity Fair interview, she would have said, wait, what am I going to be having? What am I going to be wearing? What am I going to be doing? I would like to keep that as part of the deal that I'm doing with you. I don't see her as pilfering anything, to be
No,
quite
that's
honest.
fine.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
not that.
yeah, I don't know who these people are who say that she stole it. I'm not against any Megan bagging, bashing. Don't get me wrong, because I've bashed her often enough on your show, Kinsey. But I think this one is there is quite a substantial belief that what she did was nothing wrong, that she had got all this stuff as part of a deal to do the sit-down interview. She didn't do the Vanity Fair interview for nothing. It wasn't just come and sit down and we'll talk to you. It was a soft interview for a start off. There was no hard questions. So I don't see her doing anything wrong in this one. The fact that she's come up with this ludicrous uh, result of, I'm archiving my clothes. What's she archiving? A pair of jeans and some wellies. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Well,
Ridiculous.
Charlie, you're absolutely right, because celebrities do make deals with, whether
Sure.
it's with magazines or television stations. They're doing something, and they have to wear special clothes. There's nothing wrong with that, but
No.
don't make a song and dance about it. Don't say
No.
I've got to archive these as royal
No, that's
also
clothes.
ridiculous.
royal.
That is ridiculous. That is a ridiculous excuse. She didn't have to say that because it's patently not true. I mean, you just said, kids, are we going to see a Meghan museum one day? God help us all. What's it going to be in there? Chickens? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Dickie, I think what bothers me about it is you're all right. Celebrities do this all the time. Um, but Meghan Markle, as written in that blushing Harper's Bazaar piece, wants to be announced in a room as the Duchess of Sussex. This is a woman that still insists on certain perks of the job. So if she wants to be seen as a royal, I feel like she needs to behave as a royal, and that's not by taking product. If you're be above that, because the idea of royals returning gifts, they're above that. They pursue very specific designers because there is a story behind it. We want this designer because they are a local designer to flourish, or this designer has cancers and I want to spotlight this designer because we've been doing a lot of with cancer research. There are little stories that go into why they wear what they wear and who they elevate and promote. And so I think that I'm just frustrated because if you get into the little crevices of the Sandringham agreement, it feels like Meghan is not only using her title to monetize as ever, because Harper's Bazaar on the cover of it says Duchess of Sussex. On the inside, she's shilling jam, but she's also really trying to force this title on Americans while behaving like a D-list celebrity wanting freebies.
I think that this whole business of introducing her. Firstly, she's not the brightest bunny on the planet, because she married Harry and she is the Duchess of Sussex. She's not Meghan Duchess of Sussex, because if she was Meghan Duchess of Sussex, she'd either be a widow or a divorcee.
Well,
So she is the
I think
Duchess.
she might be one of those before we get done talking about this.
She is the Duchess of Sussex, and she is trading, as you rightly say, on the title, because she's got nothing else. She's not. She doesn't have any talent. If she had talent, Hollywood would be beating a path to her door. Although she's supposed to be making a film, isn't she?
Making a cameo as herself.
Oh dear.
Tough work. Before I let you go, Charles, did it surprise you at all to see that Prince Harry will be doing a pay-per-view event basically at a Hilton in Toronto? He's talking to a group of real estate experts, not about real estate, but about service and leadership. To me, this is giving very much Wallace and Edward, how they would basically show up to the opening of an envelope as long as the price was right.
Well, I mean, it's just another path that he's trodden. that degrades what he is and what he does. And I told you before, look, Harry was a lovely guy at one time. I mean, he was a bit of a wild child, you know. He was whenever he would sit in the car with his mother, he'd stick two fingers up to the photographers and everything, but always got told off by Diana.
Hang
And he
on,
had
Charlie, I'm going to interrupt you here. He stuck two fingers up and stuck his tongue out because that's what the photographers were doing to him to get a reaction, to get a smudge.
okay, all right, but
That's awful.
guilty, I suppose, guilty. Um, and then he went through some angst with teenage years and eating, and you know, starting off with a few drugs, cannabis drugs, and whatever else he was stuffing up his nose or wherever else he was stuffing it. But you can't take away from the guy what he did in two tours of Afghanistan and his service in the military. And it's just a pity that he came out of the military when he did. I think, you know, staying in the military a little bit longer would have helped him, enormously. And we always now keep pinpointing, when did it all go wrong for Harry? Well, two words, Meghan Markle. You know, there's no doubt about that. He allowed Meghan Markle to forge, you know, to forge the fallout between him and his brother. And all his brother was saying to him, "Are you sure that this is the right woman for you? Do you not want to wait a little bit longer?" And you know, Harry has inherited a little bit of the temper that's gone down the royal way, and I think this sort of thing that he does, you know, going to these, I think it's some sort of energy thing, isn't it?
The
He's not,
real
yeah,
estate.
a real estate, you know, who I think fall below journalists in the terms of respect in the world. Um, he's going to real estate, and he's going to talk about loyalty and all that sort of stuff. No, he's not going to try and sell houses or anything. That'd be ludicrous for him to try and do that. But
He's the last person. He's the last person who should be talking about loyalty.
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I was just going to say he has shown how loyal he has been, you know, over the last few years, and he is definitely the last person, you know, he should be talking about loyalty in that way. It's ridiculous.
Dickie, do you see a lot more of this in Prince Harry's future creatively? He failed Spotify, he failed Netflix, didn't even promote Polo when it came out. Is this the path for him?
Well, there's nothing else. He's failed in everything else. The only success he had was his book, and he didn't write it. Somebody else wrote it for him.
Yeah.
It had massive sales, but he's not been successful. He will say, "Well, I have been successful. I've got two children." Well, if that is it, he's sort of on the back burner. He is the also ran. She leads, he follows. And he follows. I mean, this whole business of Meghan saying with her hand on her heart that Harry loves me so much. Really?
Yeah, but interestingly, she never actually said that she loved him
Right.
in that article. You know, he boldly loves me, but I don't exactly boldly love him. She never said anything like that, you
No.
know.
It's so awkward. That's a very good point. Dickie, before I let both of you go, any other takeaways from the Harper's Bazaar piece? Because I haven't talked to you since that came out.
Well, I read it and I looked at the sick bucket.
You looked at it? I just love when they're like, she's so popular that, you know, what do you do with all of this influence and power? And it's like, well, honestly, she's just doing jam. That's what
Hang
she.
on. America is a very, very big country. Her popularity is a very small group of people.
That
You
are
go
not even
around,
located in America. Most of them are not located in America.
if you go around America and sort of do a straw poll on Meghan Markle and what she's done, people will look at you with a question mark over their head. Who are you talking about? Who is this
Either who
Meghan?
are you talking about or that demon? Like, it's not a great reaction. Everywhere I go, I'm surprised. People won't know what I do. And Meghan Markle will somehow come up and they'll be like, oh, she's the worst. And I just sit back and go, you're telling me I have to do this I have to do this 5 days a week. But you know what? She gives us plenty of content. I wouldn't be talking about her if she wouldn't be going to Harper's Bazaar and having secret meetings with the new editor of Vogue and showing up at Paris Fashion Week.
I'm going to throw a challenge to you.
Oh, Lord.
Next time you have me on, if you have me on, I challenge you not to talk about them.
Okay, well, we'll do a Crown and Conflict. So it's easier to do on Crown and Conflict because that's about like past royal scandals. So that's the strategy.
I just want to say, I think Meghan and Harry will find out just how popular they are next year when her brother-in-law and his wife and her father-in-law and his wife turn up and be feted like you wouldn't believe by Donald Trump and other Americans. I mean, they'll be so far up, on the back burner, they won't count anywhere. Nothing they say during those trips will matter a dot.
I wouldn't be surprised if her team are already working furiously
on how to distract,
how they can sabotage it with Mr. and Mrs. Markle up front.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. They're already trying to determine how they can distract from the headlines. It'll be that's when Meghan Markle will reveal the children's faces. All right. Agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Former editor of the Sun, royal editor of the Sun, Charles Ray, and former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III, Dickie Arbiter. Thank you so much for being here today. And so
Pleasure.
fun to see two former foes, not really, but media and palace, giving me the background on some of the most compelling history that we can look back on today with Diana and Panorama.
Going head to head and agreeing most things together.
You're absolutely correct, Charlie. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks so much for watching, everyone. We will see you again soon.